Okay, I guess we'll just get started, and if Jen joins, then that'll be great. So we'll just call the meeting to order. I guess we'll start with roll call. Aaron, can you do that for us?
Yep, and when you indicate whether you're present or not, also indicate the county and city. Ms. Acevedo. Present. Commissioner Douglas.
Royal Oak, Oakland County.
Mr. Gantina.
Present. And do I need to tell you where I am currently?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm actually in Hilton Head Island, South Carolina.
Lucky.
Yeah.
Ms. Herzog.
Here, Oakland County, Royal Oak.
Ms. Lemmy.
Wayne County, Detroit.
Mr. Long.
Present, Royal Oak, Oakland County.
Mr. Marshaletti, is that right?
You're on mute.
Sorry, Royal Oak, Oakland County. I was muted.
Did I get your name right? Marshaletti?
You're close. It's
Marshaletti. Marshaletti, got it, thank you. Ms. McMahon. Or that's
Here, Royal Oak, Oakland County.
Mr. Regan.
Here, Royal Oak, Oakland County.
Mr. Sarpolis. Is it Saropolis though, correct? I had a typo on there.
Sarpolis.
Oh, it is, okay, good.
Yep, and present in Oakland County, Royal Oak.
And last but not least, Mr. Vile.
Here in Oakland County, Royal Oak.
Oh, and I'm here.
Did I skip you? I apologize, Christine.
That's okay. I'm here in Royal Oak, Oakland County.
Okay.
And Jennifer's coming in.
Oh. Jennifer, can you hear us? She's going to get her location, but maybe, I don't know so much that she's with us actually, but she might be logging in still. Jennifer, radio check. All right, well, she'll.
Okay, we'll keep going. Okay, so is there, for the next thing, is the approval of the December 2nd, 2020 minutes. Is there any discussion or a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve. Did you do those, Amanda?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I did them.
Good job.
And I very much appreciate Amanda doing the minutes because I listened to our meeting again and I can't listen to my voice.
Jennifer, really quick, Ms. Acevedo, if you could state your location, county and city.
Oh, I'm sorry. My Zoom was going crazy. So you said location, Royal Oak,
Yeah.
Royal Oak, Michigan, Oakland County.
Thank you.
Okay, so Chris made the motion to approve the December 2nd minutes. Is there a second?
I'll second.
I'll second. Oh,
Okay, Andrew, and then any discussion? Okay, seeing none, then approval through a roll call vote.
Yep, Ms. Acevedo,
Yes.
Commissioner Douglas,
Yes.
Mr. Gantina,
You're muted.
still kind of muted. Yes, Ms. Hartwig,
Yes.
Ms. Herzog,
Yes.
Ms. Lemmy,
Yes.
Mr. Long,
yes.
Mr. Marcelletti,
Yes.
Ms. McMahon,
Yes.
Mr. Regan,
Yes.
Mr. Sarpalis,
Yes.
and Mr. Vile.
Yes.
Great. Okay, on to the next, number 4, public comment.
We have one attendee. One second. Is somebody looking for an Amit R? Is that a guest of anybody's here tonight? Okay. Then I will allow him to talk.
Hi, this is Amit R, Royal Oak, Oakland County. I saw this, the Royal Oak Environmental Advisory Board, some note on Detroit Free Press. So I thought that is something of interest to me. I'll join.
Okay. Well, we're happy to have you here. If there's any, is there a specific comment you'd like to make about anything on the agenda, or you just like to be a spectator today?
Today, I would like to spectate.
Okay, then I'm going to put you into the waiting room once I figure out how to do this, but you'll have access and be able to listen live to the meeting. In fact,
Appreciate it. Thank you.
I think you stay right where you're at, actually. Yeah. Okay, we're all set. Well, welcome. Thank you.
Excuse me, Amanda.
Yes.
I wonder about introducing our new people. I
Yes.
have not met Nicholas yet.
Oh, yes, that's the next thing on our agenda.
Oh, okay.
It's number 5.
Okay, sorry. I don't have that up.
So thank you, Julie. The next thing is welcoming our new EAB members. We have 3 new members. They are not so new to our board though, because everyone has really contributed to the board over the past year or more. And we've very much appreciated everyone's input. So we have Nick, Andrew, and Paul are our new board members. Would you guys like to introduce yourself and maybe say something why you wanted to be official on the board?
Well, I guess I'll go first. Hi, I'm Nick Marcelletti, and it's a pleasure to be here tonight in official capacity. Being involved in the environmental field and being a professional geologist and being always community oriented, I just felt that, you know, I needed to give something back to the community with my experience. And that's why I wanted to join, and that's why I'm here tonight. So thank you.
Great.
Yeah, similar sentiments. Really just a pleasure to be able to be here and to be a part of this group. Many of you probably have seen me in the past. I've been tagging along at the meetings for quite some time, so I'm happy to be here in an official capacity finally. I work for the Sierra Club during the day, and I am one of the co-founders of a coalition called Turn Oakland County Green, which is really focused on making Oakland County a model for environmental policies, you know, both in the state and nationally. So just really excited to make Royal Oak a leader as well.
Yeah, I'm Paul Vial. It's great to be here in an official capacity. I made the attempt a year ago, and so finally it's come to fruition. And I'm very interested in working with EAB in terms of greenhouse gas emission reductions. And, you know, we're going to be talking about an advisory committee or advisory board or task force. I guess task force might be a better word later. And so something that I'm very interested in participating. So thank you.
Okay, and then now we have to do our annual business, and that is the election of our 2021 officers. And we have 3 officers, a chair, a vice chair, and a secretary. So we'll just go through each one. So is there any nomination for chair?
Did you want to do it again, Amanda?
Sure. Sure,
I nominate
yeah.
Amanda Herzog for chair.
I second.
Now, well, I think we can vote on, I just started to interrupt. I think we can make our selections or nominations and vote on a slate, if I understand right. Maybe
Okay, yep.
Douglas would know if I'm wrong.
So, so I accept that. And then is there a nomination for vice chair? That was held by Ken. I believe Ken was not at our meeting and we just made him vice chair. So I don't know if Ken still wants to do that.
Would you accept the nomination, Ken?
I mean, yeah, I would accept it, but if somebody wants to step up and they want to increase their role on the board, I'm absolutely fine if somebody wants to self-nominate or somebody wants to jump in.
Well, if we stuck to that rule, it was almost Jennifer, right? She made it just take a time.
Now you're funny.
Well, hearing
But if
nobody,
not, yes, I
nominate
accept.
Ken Long for vice chair.
I'll second that.
Okay. And then moving on to secretary.
Is Amanda our secretary now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Amanda, if we nominated you for secretary, would you accept the nomination?
I would.
I nominate Amanda McMahon for secretary.
It's
But
that,
I am also open to others. If you want a job, I'm not tied to it at all. So if you wanted to take these detailed notes, I'm okay with that too.
Well, I think we found our 3 suckers. I'm ready to move on. I didn't mean that. I used to be chair. I don't think there's anything wrong with it.
So is there a motion for me as the chair, Ken as the vice chair, and Amanda for secretary?
So moved.
And then a second, Andrew's a motion, and then a second.
I second.
Okay, Paul. And then a vote.
Yep, Ms. Acevedo,
Yes.
Commissioner Douglas,
Yes.
Gontina,
Yes, and thank you guys.
Ms. Hartwig,
Yes.
Ms. Herzog,
Yes.
Ms. Lemmy,
Yes.
Mr. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Marcelletti,
Yes.
Ms. McMahon,
Yes.
Mr. Regan,
Yes.
Mr. Sarpalis,
Yes.
and Mr. Vile.
Yes.
Okay, great. So our next agenda item, number 7, the Director of Public Services and Recreation report, Aaron.
All right, well, I've just had a few items here, and then there's a couple other items we'll talk about later in the agenda. So I'll be brief. Our February meeting, I'd request that we make that our, what's the term for it? The Water System Advisory Council meeting. We're supposed to meet once, at least once a year. I imagine we're going to meet more than that, but let's kick it off next month if that's okay. We can make that an agenda item. And specifically, there's some state literature that we're charged with that board that I'm going to bring and we can kick around for a little bit. And I'll present that to the group before the meeting. But that's one of the purposes of the group. And then otherwise, just have a discussion about kind of an informational campaign that will dovetail with some of the other work that we're doing. So that sort of leads me into where we stand with lead and copper. In 2020, we replaced 103 between engineering projects and the DPS. And so for this year, we also have 100 that we're obligated to do. We're going to do far beyond that. We've already got our first 30 scheduled to begin in February. We're doing them in bunches now. We finally got some stuff worked out with the SOCWA contractor. So that's lined up. We'll be doing those on scale like that, a few big projects every couple of months. As far as the review of our records go, the preliminary review of our information for what the city has on the city side of the water service is complete. We're cleaning it up a little bit and we're doing some additional investigation. So a big chunk of the work's done. There's still stuff to go. And to help us with that, I applied for $1 million for the drinking water asset management grant to be used specifically for potholing, hydrovacking down to see what service materials are without having to actually excavate. And then also for some tracking software so that 25 years down the road, when there's some other issue we have to be concerned with, we'll have better records and we can sort through a little easier. So keep our fingers crossed for that. And then last item for this part of the meeting, I'm just happy to report that my budget request this year, I'm working with Julie Lyons-Bricker on this as well, will include 3 all-electric vehicles to start off with for the inspection team at City Hall. And then also a request for the related charging infrastructure, which is really interesting. We're kind of, right now, Julie and I are looking at 2 options with Beam Solar, which is an option that's actually a portable unit, not very portable, but could be moved, but it is not plugged in at all. It's not connected to the network at all. It only uses a big solar panel on top that tracks the sun. It's really cool, and it's got battery storage in it. It charges. It might work for us. It works in New York. They have, I forgot how many.
Did you see MSU is doing it too? They have parking lots full of these, I think.
The solar charger ones?
Oh wait, maybe they're just solar panels, but I thought there were some chargers too.
So these are really cool. You park underneath them and you can fit multiple cars on it. So we recognize that we need that if we're going to add these to our fleet. I'm a little skeptical about it with our climate, but we hear some good stuff from New York. If it works there, geez, it must work here. But we're also chasing down the hardwired option as well. Bottom line is next year we'll have at least 3 electric vehicles on there. And I was thinking when that time comes to highlight the work that you guys do, probably be cool to sticker them somewhere on there with some logo about your efforts somehow, just the green effort. But anyway, that's the items that I have for this portion.
I have a question. So 3 vehicles, how much is the overall city fleet? Do we have a number on that?
We haven't. We're putting it in the budget, but we're budgeting, I want to say like 44 or 45,000, I think, for each of them. That's if we needed any kind of additional upfitting on them or anything. That's actually quite high for what the Chevys are coming in at. It's from what I understand now. I don't have the price in front of me, but we would buy those off of state pricing.
Okay, and will the charging infrastructure that's available to these vehicles, is it going to be in like a city lot? Will it be available to the public as well? Has that been discussed at this time?
Yeah, as it stands now, we do have some that's available for the public. We'll leave that there. These that we're talking about here would be the start to, would be kind of exclusive for staff use. Unless we found that with usage patterns or something, we could make them available potentially. But no, this is just to make sure that our crews have the juice they need to begin with.
Can I make a suggestion, Aaron?
Sure.
If you do end up getting sort of this portable charging station, I'm assuming it's going to be sort of in your yard. But certainly I would think about making it available for employees to use during the day if they're there, if they've got a vehicle to charge, because the fleet vehicles wouldn't necessarily need to be there because they're going to be out on the road. So that's something to think about.
Yeah, good point. Thank you.
I have another suggestion. You looked at solar. What about wind?
Well, not for charging infrastructure, it's not feasible.
Okay, fair enough.
And it sounded like this was a self-contained unit, right?
I'm sorry?
It sounded like this was a self-contained unit, like a PV
Yeah.
canopy with the vehicle charger.
Exactly. Yep.
That's great. And we would love to, if it comes through, then put it on our social media and have a lot of press around it, because that's cool. Okay, so now Julie is a staff member on our board instead of a resident. So she has a line item, an energy and sustainability manager report. Julie.
Hey, thank you. So the big news for this meeting is that the greenhouse gas goals that you all approved at our December meeting were approved 2 days ago by the City Commission. So we are on a path to aim for greenhouse gas emissions 40% by 2030 and then net zero by 2050. So that was great. It was a long time coming, that whole project of the inventory and then the goals. And so it's a huge relief that that piece is behind us, because what it means is that the next steps and all of the, action and all of the fun stuff to start digging into what can we actually do is next. I'm not sure if you all had a chance to look at the resolution. We put 4 main pieces in. One was the commission to approve those goals. The second was to allow staff to do these inventories every 3 years so we can gauge our progress and also go back to the goals if there needs to be some tweaking one way or another. It also gives staff permission to move forward on creating climate actions for the developing sustainability plan. And then that sustainability plan has an estimated completion date by January 2022. So those are the things from the letter. I wonder if there are any questions. I'd be happy to answer about those. And if not, then the next very interesting piece is I have permission from the city manager to move forward with a SolSmart, SOLSMART membership. And that is an organization that is through the Solar Foundation and the ICMA, which is a government agency, you know, helping government employees. And I'm going to pull up a page here. What the SolSmart program does is helps government officials ultimately reduce the soft costs of solar installation. So it's like making your city solar ready. They said that they will help our local processes be more efficient, better managing limited taxpayer resources, harnessing solar energy on public lands or facilities to meet municipal electricity needs, and support community goals for sustainability, renewable energy use, and/or climate change actions. And all of that is for no cost to the city. So what we need to do is make a letter statement that we are in good faith moving forward to procure solar and make it easier for residents to also procure solar. So that one is really cool also, because we do have an ordinance on the books about solar and renewable energy, but this will let us know if indeed what's there is suitable for moving the whole process along. And then let's see, the next item we have is the composting. The city composting program has moved on to its third location now. I'll just remind you that we started at the library with a pilot, and that worked really well. So then composting started at the senior center, and now we have it at the city hall. The next place in on the list is they're going to do some research about the farmers market, because that in some ways is a really big option. So that's really it's a piece of the sustainability puzzle that's waste. Royal Oak has a relatively high solid waste number that's actually going to the landfill, even though we have a robust single stream recycling and then also some yard composting. So this may be another technique to help with the narrative, from municipal operations, relating those to our residents for helping them move forward in the future. So Aaron, I saw your hand up. Did you have something about composting?
Yeah, because we hadn't talked since then, but I had a conversation with the farmers market today about that to see the feasibility. Because I thought there was some duplication of effort. They actually have somebody on board now that takes on all of their unsold produce and then cooks it and provides that to the community. And the stuff that can't be, that is rotten or unsellable, they compost. But I didn't think that they would have any need for it. If that were the case, it would be a double of effort. But they have a couple of the vendors, that smoothie vendor, had interest in it. So knowing that there was actually something that would be produced to go in these things, we kind of agreed to that today. So they haven't taken delivery on them yet, but it's happening.
Okay, yeah, it sounds good. It sounded like the man that helps us with the other locations was willing to go for a few Saturdays to check the feasibility before we obligated ourselves. So
A question, Julie.
Sorry?
Just a question. When you say composting at City Hall, did you mean food waste composting?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, food waste composting from Midtown Compost, I think is the company name. And the situation is that they come once a week and pull the bag out of our 5-gallon bucket and replace it, so it never sits long enough to become, smelly. And for the first 2 locations, the the library has 1 5-gallon bucket, and I think the senior center has 2. Is that right, Aaron? Do you know that?
They have 1, I believe. Oh yeah, the kitchen, excuse me. Yes, they do have 2. Yep.
Okay, and they fill theirs up also. So I think at the city hall, we only got ours about 2 weeks ago. So we'll give it a couple months and then report out about, is 1 bucket enough for us, or, would we move on to 2? So anyway, that's interesting news, more efforts and initiatives moving forward. And then the last thing I have on my list is city sustainability. And I made this list before we came up with the sustainability planning brainstorming document. So I'll just wait on that one until later on in the agenda, if that's all right.
With the composting at the farmer's market, is that just for vendors and people that go to the farmer, or like that are eating at the farmer's market?
It's actually, as I understand it, right, Julie? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I think that's right.
So a few years ago, our board, there was a member that wanted to have composting at the farmer's market where residents could come and bring their scraps to the farmer's market, and then a vendor would come and take it away. So I don't know if that's an option, or if you guys are looking at any residential composting.
I don't think it's on the list right now, but I guess it's something that we could think about.
City of Toronto does it. City of Toronto has residential food waste composting pickup.
Pickup, or they bring their stuff someplace?
They got special containers they put out in front of their house, and the city comes by and picks it up.
Okay, so Midtown will do that kind of thing, and I think for a residential location, it's $9 a month. Is that right? Oh, maybe I shouldn't say that.
Yeah,
it's $30 a month for commercial. Maybe it's $9 every 2 weeks or something like that. But they do have that service. It just wouldn't be. I mean, we haven't looked at it as a city service, right, Aaron?
Right.
Okay.
Not something we can't though, for sure. So
yeah.
Yeah, and when you talk food waste, what type of food are you limited? Is like is there no meat and fat, or?
It's everything.
It is everything. Okay.
It's bones and meats and eggshells and coffee grounds and carrots, peels. It's everything you can think of. Just put it in there.
Okay. Yeah, because most will do like the eggs, the eggshells, those things. But usually when you get into the fats, the meats and the fat and grease, that's usually where it kind of draws a line. So okay.
Yep.
It might be something that the farmer's market considers, like residents bringing. I mean, that would make more people going on a Saturday morning to the farmer's market. I mean, they might welcome the traffic. So, okay.
Would that be a question for Midtown to see if that's something? Is that who would potentially be servicing the farmer's market?
yeah, and there are other questions, I suppose, as well, being that they, maybe not now so much, but they host events there. So depending on the scale of what we're talking about, I don't know if we want a big bin of food waste sitting out there necessarily, but something could be worked out too with Midtown, that it's just announced that residents can bring it there on any given Saturday, and he just stations there on a Saturday. So there's a number of ways to look at it. That's an interesting thought, and Julie and I will follow up on that one for sure.
Is that it for your report, Julie?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Then going on to City Commissioner report, Char Douglas.
Thanks, Amanda. Things are quiet at City Hall, mostly because staff has been the commission has been trying not to lean too hard on the staff just because of the COVID, the challenges they face operating under COVID. Also, behind the scenes, staff are now receiving and starting to process marijuana business applications. So that, ties up the manager's office and the community development office and the city attorney. So we're kind of keeping an arm's length and letting them go at that. You may have seen where police are moving into the new police station this month, should have that completed supposedly by the end of the month. They've set up systems so that that will happen smoothly. The cities of Troy and Madison Heights are handling dispatch and prisoners and, you know, some of the other things that can't be quickly moved over to the new building. The old building, the lobby is still open for, you know, walk-in services, but the cops themselves are starting to move over. We're super thrilled about it. The chief says it's certainly the best police station in Oakland County, if not all of Michigan. So very cool. Our commission agenda this past Monday had one item on it, and that was the greenhouse gas report. So thanks to Julie and Paul and Aaron and Andrew for his work on it. And that presentation, city commissioners were very enthusiastic about that, very, very positive about all of our sustainability efforts. So that we had a short agenda, so some nice time to spend talking about that and hopefully bringing it to the public eye. So that's it. Things are quiet. I may have a little bit to add when you get to your 100-year celebration.
Okay, great.
So questions?
No.
No.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, so now on to the fugitive demolition dust work group. Nick.
All right, I apologize. I don't have a lot of the notes in front of me, but the work group met last week. We discussed the what happened with the city inspector in the previous meeting with regards to how there basically isn't an ordinance for enforcement per dust or with anything regarding dust per our city demolition permits. Amanda, I believe, is going to be looking at reaching out to the city council to seeing what we could do with regards to maybe changing that direction with regards to, if not necessarily changing the demo permit options, which would be one option, but looking more toward perhaps stronger ordinances when they're doing demolition with keeping dust down with regards to not only asbestos, but lead, and what other communities we're going to be reaching out to see what they do with regards to their demolition permits and dust control. Did I miss anything?
No.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Any
So we're just moving that work forward. Sure.
Yeah, I mentioned something when we just discussed this at the last time, and I'll just bring it up again. Have you looked at, or will you be looking at OSHA standards in this regard? Because certainly any regulations that improve conditions for employees are going to improve conditions for anybody in the surrounding area, and that might be a good jumping off place to start in terms of you know, crafting regulation.
I mean, I think that's a good idea to discuss, but the trouble with using an OSHA standard is they look at an 8-hour exposure in most cases for workers. And I'm not sure we would have justification for doing that, but we could certainly look at it that way to start with. And there are other regulation guidelines. There are Eagle air quality guidelines with regard to lead and dust and ambient air, and certainly I'm sure there's some EPA guidelines out there also.
Yeah, the more data you can bring us, the better.
Okay, that's obvious. Sure, no problem.
Things we talked about too was not just the day of the demolition, but for days after, how long does that stay on the soil surrounding the demos? And I don't know how we get data on that, but I think we were looking into like a dust control. I think we have some kind of dust control ordinance, right? Or something. I forget where it is listed in all of our ordinances. But anyway, just even if we can't go for the asbestos or lead dust specifically, just dust control in general, it's a nuisance.
Yes, we discussed that too, and I think that would be an easy place to start, because just keeping dust down with watering or not letting a demolition occur on a windy day would be simple and relatively easy to enforce. And you know, the other question, you know, I bring up is that we still don't have a clear answer on what is, in my mind, what is a applicable building. You know, we have the residential exemption, But if is a detached garage not exempt from that? As an example, I'm doing a demo on a building right now that's not exempt, and it's basically not much larger than the size of an outhouse. So I just have a problem with saying a house is exempt when it's 1,500 square feet, but a 10 by 10 foot building, simply because it's not residence, isn't. Where does a garage fit in that, especially if it's detached? So, I mean, I guess that's a question direct to the city is, when you go for a demo permit, is everything on a singular lot considered part of a residential structure, even if it's not attached?
I would direct that question to, I can forward that question to Jason Craig, because I don't know the technical details of that or the answer.
Yeah, I don't know that level, that, granular of detail.
I mean, I think it's a legitimate question, right? I mean, do you need two, in some cases I could see a city requiring two separate buildings, two separate demo permits.
Yep, we can, and we can put him in touch with you again, actually.
That would be great. Thank you. That's it.
Great. So we'll be moving forward. We'll be grabbing all that data, and we just want to, we want to see growth in our city. Like, that's not what we're trying to hinder, but we want to make sure that the environmental impacts of that growth, that we're not hurting our health and our environment. Okay, so the next is the community garden work group. Tom.
Oh, thanks, Amanda. No, back in the fall, we talked about, why don't we start a community gardening program? And everybody seemed positive about it. And I know Aaron was positive about it. And then a city manager put the brake on it for a while, but he's taken his foot off the brake. And so I think we can go forward. I guess, did you want to do a vote on it or something, Amanda? Or is it just a consensus thing? Is anybody opposed, I guess, or doing?
We're doing it.
Oh, okay, we're doing it.
I think you
Okay.
should just go through like kind of what your ideas are and see who wants to join your effort. And
yeah, if we want to do it for the spring, we'd want to have something ready by April 1st, because that's, there's a lot of cold weather hardy crops you can put in around April 1st, and Swiss chard and carrots and onions and things like that. So I think that'd be the date we'd aim for having it shovel ready, as they say. Of course, step one would be finding out if anybody in town's actually interested in doing it. If we can't find anybody interested, it's sort of a waste of time to put up the raised beds and all that. But we're thinking about having a COVID safe outdoor meetup on Saturday, February 13th, 1 o'clock, maybe at Star JC or at the main shelter or something like that. And then follow that up with a Zoom meeting and publicize the heck out of it and just kind of see who shows up. If anybody shows up at a meeting in the middle of February outdoors, they're hot to trot. We know we got some people interested. So I think it would be a good structure test, to see if people are actually interested and do it, have a couple events and see if we can even get a dozen people, that would be a good start. But that was my thinking on it.
So, I think other communities that have done this have actually charged a fee, or other groups. Like, I know a church group that did this, a couple of other cities nearby. They charge a fee because they provide water. I'm assuming that's why. But the vision for this is not, there's no fee. To me, I'm very interested in this. I have my own garden that I work on. But to me, the limiting factor is the availability of water. So I did read your notes, and you had suggested using rain barrels to capture water, or what? It seemed to me like the best thing would be to find a site that maybe was next to a building that offered water access.
Yeah,
And
or a
at
big
least,
roof. Yeah.
Yeah, at least initially. So, like I was thinking of the Salter Center, some of the property around there. But, I don't know how much, if you have a site in mind, or that's to be determined yet. Okay.
No, I did not have a site in mind.
when we were talking about it earlier, Commissioner Macy was really interested in it, and she was saying the parks, because she's on the Parks and Rec board. And then also Brandon Colo and was talking about the schools, right, Tom? One of
Yeah,
the,
Brandon, him and Tim Chikorsky were talking at a school city liaison meeting, and they were both in favor of it, which kind of surprised me. I just kind of overheard them talking about it. I said, hey, I didn't know you were in favor of community garden. But I think we wouldn't get resistance from the schools or the city if we identified a piece of land that would make good for a garden that's not being used right now.
Right. I mean, some schools already have or have had. There used to be a garden at Royal Oak Middle School that Kathy Guest and I worked on a little bit. Oak Ridge Elementary has had a garden for, oh my gosh, 10 years or more now. Like I said, the issue would be water. I mean, if you're going to have a garden, you kind of need to have water. I know somebody else who offered plots through their church, and they charged for it. And near the end of the season, they had trouble with, even after people paid, people not coming back and collecting the fruits of their garden or weeding their garden. So I got drafted to help weed. But so anyway, I mean, I think with my experience in doing gardens at the schools, it would be good to have a visible site so that just for sake of, having eyes on the area so that nobody just goes in and decides to ruin what people have started. That is always a possibility on a public site. Having done landscaping around public schools for years and years and years, I can tell you that unfortunately vandalism happens. So you want it to be a public site. You want it to have water access if possible. And, I think if it's free, from what I know, that, people would be attracted to that.
As far as the water access too, if we're planting edible plants, we probably don't want to use rain barrel water because that's not good to be consuming that. And then the other thing was too that we got to make sure our soil is clean. And so whatever site is chosen, who knows if there's a demolition taking place, or took place in the past year. So I'm guessing we're going to be doing raised beds, but just some other things to think about.
And you're saying you can't use rain barrels on edible crops? Because I've been doing that for years. I've never had an issue. I'm not sure what you mean.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I've heard that you can use rain barrels to water, native plants or whatever plants you have, if you're not consuming them, or if you're going to consume them, I guess you have to wash them really, really good.
Yeah, there's a risk of disease, I think, because if like birds or animals, defecate on roofs, or like there's other unsanitary things. Also, roofs can be made of like petroleum products and stuff. So I think that, at least is my understanding. So I've heard though you can do drip irrigation is pretty safe. Like if you want to do vegetable crops, you can do, as long as, my understanding, because I looked into this because I wanted to do gardens, as long as the water stays beneath the actual crops and it's just going into the roots, it's pretty safe. So I don't know, maybe we should do some more research on it. But I would just say a couple of things on this. So personally, I like the idea of using rainwater, because I think if we're going to do something like this as the Environmental Advisory Board, and we can model sustainability in certain ways in this project, I think it's really important that we double up on our sustainability goals, and there are benefits to community gardening, but there are additional benefits we can realize if we design a project really well. A couple of things that come to mind for me is walkability, number one, because one of the benefits of having a garden is that people don't have to drive to the store to purchase their goods, and so they save fossil fuels. And so we can identify neighborhoods and sites where people who are subscribing can walk to those sites. I think that's really helpful. I think as well, a lot of people put non-native plants and to attract pollinators near their garden to get the bees to come and stuff. I've seen like marigolds and stuff like that are sold in gardening supply stores, but we'd have to do a little more research on exactly what bee species are attracted to what, but I personally think we could probably use like black-eyed Susans are really good in the sun, you know, some attract a lot of pollinators, Joe Pyeweed. You know, we could use those native plants and build some habitat restoration into these gardening projects. So I think maybe there's some things we should consider here, but I like the idea. I used to live in Midtown. There was a really happening community garden there that was always fully subscribed. My office in Ferndale, there's a community garden. Well, my former office in Ferndale, there's a community garden there, which seems to get pretty good use. I would imagine the demand in Royal Oak is going to be pretty high too. So I think this is a great idea, and I would love to be involved in supporting it in whatever way I can. But I would like to see how we can double up benefits. So that's just.
No, I agree with both points you made. What
Yeah.
we were thinking about the meetings we'd have would be to identify who's interested and then try to get it as close to those people as possible, assuming they cluster somewhere, which they usually do. You know, they're usually, just the randomness works that way. And as far as using rainwater to water and being dangerous, I mean, I've never watered the leaves of a plant or the fruit of a plant. You water the roots. So if you're using, no matter what water you're using, you're going to have it right at the roots. Otherwise, you get mold and mildew and things like that. So I don't think there's any danger using rainwater because it's going to go right on the roots if you're growing food. You don't water the leaves and the fruit.
Yeah, I agree. And, you know, the soil is your filter. And, you know, it's true, birds poop on roofs, but they also poop on your garden. So, you know, you're never going to get away from that. But yeah, if you use, I mean, I've used rainwater for my garden for years, but you know, that's one of the reasons I was initially thinking of one of the community centers is because people are already going there for other reasons, and they could combine, you know, going there for whatever they do there, their exercise or classes or whatever. Of course, people aren't doing that so much right now, but they are centers where people go for other reasons, and maybe we could piggyback on that. And there's, you know, people coming and going, you know, from those places on a regular basis, in non-COVID circumstances.
So I guess I'll just speak up real quick. So I just wanted to sort of echo what Andrew was saying. I certainly support it. Tom, you definitely have free labor in me, so use me. But I agree with Andrew in that I think we definitely should sort of model the behavior that we would want out of this, and absolutely sort of make every effort to make it self-sustaining and not necessarily have access to water as a requirement for one of the sites. Obviously, I understand that the plants themselves need the water, but I think we actually open ourselves up to a wider variety of potential sites by not having that as a requirement of needing access to, I guess, city water. And so we go in right away with the rainbow. I think initially, yes, we may have to sort of, I guess, borrow the fire department to maybe hook up to a fire hydrant to fill a few rain barrels for us or something along those lines. But I have a small little garden in the back of my house. I used an old 64-gallon recycling bin as a rain barrel, and I fill it up at the beginning of the summer, and I might have to fill it up one other time during the course of the summer, but otherwise it gets more than enough rain just to support the little garden that we've got. So I think there's easy solutions to try to make it self-sustaining that we should definitely try to make primary versus just making sure that we connect to water or something like that. Because I think the minute you start trying to charge for things, it starts to make the whole program a little bit more complicated.
We could also make a program around the community garden, right? So we could have a speaker that comes and talks about native plants, any of the sustainability things that we want to promote, and it be kind of you have your plot, but you're also getting this information that we really want to feed the community.
Oh, that's a good point. It's a place you could be a natural for community meetings. Yeah.
You're on mute, Aaron.
I just wanted to comment on that timeline. April is only doable if we have a very clear understanding of exactly what we want to construct, because that's either a really realistic goal or not at all. depending on which route we go. And I hear that there's still some details that need to be ironed out. So I don't know how firm we could be with that April thing unless we settle out on a detail. And that matters, I guess, to the extent of how the Public Services Department can support it. If there's any outlay for materials or anything on that end, whether or not that falls within something that within the scope of a larger budget ask or something that we have the resources at hand to do. So I would just add that really it depends on what we finally settle out on. And then also to consider adding into the planning process here some time to have a discussion about any of the rules of engagement sort of stuff involved with this. Because that inevitably is a thing that creates conflict immediately and makes things difficult. So I know other cities have done it. It would be a good model to look at some of that, but just let's not forget to consider how we administer this in a fair manner. That's all. Thank you.
Did you have any suggestions for cities to look at as far as a model?
Yeah, somebody had mentioned one. I think it was that you, Andrew?
Yeah, Ferndale and Midtown both have really nice community gardens that I've seen.
And so I didn't want my comment, I don't want to pour cold water on any of this. I just wanted to keep that on the radar as well.
Yeah, and then I mentioned April 1st. That would be a best case. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Tom, a quick question. When you were talking about the location, then Andrew mentioned in neighborhoods as in plural. Has there been any thought that maybe there wouldn't just be one? Maybe the one that you do right now is a pilot in a smaller portion of our community, and then see how that works, so that, you know, part of the making sure that it's readily accessible for people.
Yeah, that was the thinking, but we'd only do it if people were interested, and we'd try to do it as close to them as possible.
Okay, all right. And then the other thing I was thinking about when I heard this is not the Salter Center, but the senior center, you know, for similar reasons that Christine says the Salter Center, you know, because people are already there, you know, there's a senior population, and if they have interest in gardening, you know, they have time, you know, and then it's also by the high school. It's, you know, around a few communities. So, oh, and also the Nature Society has the Arboretum there, and they have a pollinator garden already in place with native plants.
Cool.
And they have water access there.
Oh, yes. And the other thing is, I think Aaron, the cook, is trying to get beehives set up.
Really?
Yeah, at the senior center. She mentioned it I don't know, maybe 6 or 8 months ago, because there was a grant available, but it's something that they have an interest in, and, you know, so who knows? But I was thinking that, and Aaron, I don't know how it works to kind of donate land to a community garden. I mean, are there rules about these pieces of land, what they can be used for?
Depends on the piece of land and a number of things, but yeah, that would always have to go under legal review
Okay.
for use, for sure.
Yeah, because I think at the senior center, what I was thinking about is the grassy area on the north side of the parking lot.
Yeah, I started where I was thinking too.
Mm-hmm. But I know that Greg has been planting, you know, the Arbor Day trees there. So I would hate to have to tear out some of the trees that are already in place. And so anyway, just two thoughts I had. I love the idea of a community garden. I'm all for it. I would like to participate, but, you know, if it's in South Royal Oak, I live in the very tippy North Royal Oak, I probably wouldn't get there very frequently. And so anyway, I think it's a great idea. Thank you for taking this on as a work group.
I just want to add a couple other thoughts. So really quickly, I know me and Julie have talked about like the 20-minute neighborhood model, and I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with that concept. I know Ann Arbor, I think, is trying to do some of that with that now, but the basic idea is that you can get to all of your daily needs within about 20 minutes. So grocery store, you know, doctor's appointments, whatever. It's like building neighborhoods around how people use them so that they can be walkable. And I think like if this is successful, maybe we could pilot that. Maybe if we scale up, we could try and put one within 20-minute walking distance of every neighborhood. And, maybe that's an intention or a goal, and then we can make sure everyone has access to fresh food and gardening abilities, in Royal Oak. And the other thing I would just say is in terms of designing it, I would personally prefer that the cost to join be very low, because I think, especially when you talk about like low-income people who may not already have access to healthy foods, I think it's important that the access costs are low. But I do think there should be penalties for not taking care of the plot or not weeding or things like that. And I think that we should try and incentivize people to prioritize upkeep. I think there should be something designed into the system so we're not out there weeding everything ourselves, which I think is a very legitimate concern. So those are just kind of two other things I wanted to add.
If they're raised beds, I don't think there's much of a danger of getting out of control.
I just had another thought in terms of, I think we've all been thinking around the notion of whoever works on these community gardens is going to want to, benefit from the fruits of their labor, no pun. But I think there's also going to be a group of folks that do want to come and actually help maintain the gardens just in an educational effort. And they may take that knowledge back home to their own little plot of land and their own little garden, which I think is perfectly fine as well. So I think, we need to kind of consider the educational benefit of having a community garden as a resource that folks that just want to understand how to garden better can come to and help out with as well. Not necessarily just, you've got a 1/32nd share of this garden, so you get, 1 bushel of the benefit necessarily.
Oh, well, I mean, most gardens, you have your own plot or part of a plot. So you don't create one big garden that everybody shares in. I mean, I that's been my knowledge of how other places have set them up, is you have your own area and that's yours to do with what you want. And then that's what you harvest. But you're right. There are other models.
If this is successful, I could certainly imagine a neighborhood, literally one block of neighbors, that decides that they want their own neighborhood garden, and they may build it, and they maintain it and they do everything, and essentially implementing all the same principles that we'd be advocating for. So I just think we need to think things differently. Well, I agree with you. Normally it's you have your own plot within a larger space, but I think if the intent is to get more people to understand and engage within the community garden concept and have a network of these around the city, the more people we can get involved in whichever ways that we can get them involved, the better.
Any other?
Should I I was just wondering, Aaron, should I just go ahead and contact Judy about doing a press release and all that stuff?
No, let's work together on that along with her through me.
Okay.
Oh, and Tom, I had expressed interest in working on this. I didn't realize you guys met already. So if you could add my name, I'd be interested in working on this in the future.
Okie dokie.
I have one more thing also, Tom. I saw a grant opportunity for a community garden for a couple $1,000. I can send that along to you. I think one of the things they required was the idea behind your garden, and so we would need more information to fill that out. Some of the location and what kind of format it would be and that kind of thing. Not sure how the timing will work, but after the meeting, I'll look for that link again and send it through.
Okay, great. Anything else, Tom? All right, let's move on to the sustainability plan work group. Julie.
Okay, so let's see. I wonder the best way to do this. Should we just get started with that document?
Yeah.
Amanda, did everybody get the sustainability plan draft document?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so after we submitted the resolution to the commission, but before the meeting happened, we started on the next step with which was kind of just a brainstorming thinking session about what are the next steps, what are the steps that we could ask the EAB to engage in continuing this sustainability ball rolling. And so if you have that sustainability action plan development page, you'll see that, you know, at the top of the list is trying to define the purpose and the hierarchy and the size of an advisory team. Because what we were thinking is that this advisory team would help move the whole sustainability plan development process along. So they would be, you know, our thinking partners. And in the first iteration, we thought that this team might include staff, EAB members, residents, businesses, somebody from Beaumont, somebody from the school district. But then after I started writing all of those things out, it seemed like that group could get very big, right? And maybe it's not as advisory, and it becomes more of a work group. So one of the questions that we have for you is, what kind of design makes sense for the leadership of this process? You know, does it make sense to have a small advisory team with people who have decision-making power, like some of our commissioners, the mayor, you know, somebody high up from Beaumont, the superintendent from the school district? Or do we just have an advisory team that has interested parties from multiple sectors, and they help us set up and manage the topic work groups? And if you go a little bit further down the list, topic work groups are potentially things like the topic would be energy or transportation or water or waste. And we're thinking that, you know, in an effort to get the best actions and goals set up, because of the resources, you know, the bandwidth that staff has right now, having work groups for each of those topics would be super helpful. So again, back to the advisory team, or, you know, the layout of, you know, the top level of this development process. I hope that made sense. Now I'm going in circles, but any feedback would be helpful. Does it, I guess first question, does it make sense for the advisory team to have members of every kind of stakeholder we can think of? Or does it make sense for the advisory team to be a higher level group that gives us some clout, say, because of their positions and their interest in this work? And then have a second level of partners, which entail somebody from all of the stakeholder sectors, or some other model. And we're totally open to, you know, thinking about this
and looking for input, right?
And looking for input, yes.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to say because you don't know yet who's interested. A lot of this stuff is driven by who raises their hand and gets interested. I don't know if I'd worry about defining it right now. Maybe wait to see who's interested in getting involved.
Yeah,
well, I guess,
and that's interesting, except I think one of the efforts we wanted to put out was having some of this already crafted, so we could go to the commissioners and say, this is what we need you to do. Are you interested? But if we don't know what we want them to do, you know, what the purpose of that task is, it's a little bit difficult. Does that make sense? Like, we need the narrative and the storyline.
I have a possible suggestion for a format.
Okay.
I don't know if it would be helpful or not, but It seems to me like we don't know, like, is the problem, like how participative all these institutions are going to be. So maybe we could start with an exploratory group, see who's interested in being part of that, and that's all one group. And if we find that we have really high interest after that initial meeting, we could kind of split into an executive or a steering committee portion of that group and then a larger stakeholder meeting. And so the executive function of like maybe convening and figuring out the direction of that would be done by the people that are most engaged. Like Beaumont may not want to be engaged in home heating conversations, they may not want to be engaged in some of these elements. So maybe they wouldn't be necessarily the right stakeholder for the overall executive function, but they might be part of the steering group because there will be like transportation elements, like how people are getting to Beaumont, that will be important. There will be commercial electricity elements. So I'm just thinking maybe like we layer the leadership based on the projected participation level of the stakeholders if the group is too big, but we kind of keep them in touch with each other. So I don't know, just another group.
Yeah, I agree with that. Actually, when we were first talking about the advisory group, actually, I think my mind was more thinking about the model that you just kind of laid out, which was a much smaller steering committee, and then maybe a larger group that is still a leadership group, but is actually focusing on sort of the actionable tasks. And those are two different groups necessarily. Maybe they're members of both. But I think a steering committee that's maybe at a little bit higher level, that's a smaller group, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, Paul?
Yeah, I guess I think we have to define, the roles of each, so they're well understood. And then also we have to define, what is the relationship between the various groups. And then we also have, the Environmental Advisory Board. How do these groups feed into the Environmental Advisory Board? And then, we have the city commissioners. So, I hope that we don't get it, too complicated too fast. I, think it might be, better to try to keep it a little simpler, a little flatter going forward. I think, initially maybe we should think about what's a good number, right? You have, if you get many more than 12, it becomes a little unmanageable. And certainly you do want at least, more than 8, I would think. So 8 to 12 in there, that way you get a good perspective. We did talk about how ultimately where we want to go is we're going to have all these focus groups or work groups that are going to center around, either transportation or energy or green space or quality of life. Those were the things. So, that's the place where we can, really expand, right? And really, I think the other thing that we talked about was that this advisory task force would be kind of more responsible for just laying out the process for the various focus groups and then following through with facilitating those focus groups. So, I guess my recommendation is, try to keep it 8 to 12. Try to make sure that we pull from a wide variety of, business and residents and city folks who are part of city administration, schools. So I think I think and then see who we could ask to be part of that 8 to 12. And then once that's established, then they put together the ground rules and the direction for creating the focus groups. Anyway, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, so one of the things that I think about now that I look at my list, right, is staff, EAB, businesses, residents, NGO, House of Worship, commissioners, Beaumont, school districts, other cities. If one person from each of those groups joined, that would be 9 people already. And I guess one of the things I'm thinking about is it would be helpful to have multiple commissioners on the group. It would be helpful to have multiple staff, multiple EAB members. And so that's when, you know, this potential team starts getting really big and, exactly to your point, Paul, like unwieldy. So, but maybe going back to Tom's initial thought was, first of all, how much interest do you have? You know, and maybe we don't have to define the job and the task so fully in this first iteration of asking, you know, for interest.
I mean, I'm fine with whatever, but what I will say is that I would be really remiss to turn away potential allies. You know, if we have 30 allies that all want to be a part of this process, I think that's a really good problem to have. And I think we should design a structure that entails somehow getting all of them in. But I agree, there is the problem that then it gets really unwieldy. So that's just what I'm struggling with balance.
Well, can I just ask a basic question to the group, and that's around the list of groups that we have identified here, right? So I guess I'll back up a step. I think we all agree that a wide variety of stakeholders is a benefit. And then the next step would be, okay, is who we've identified as stakeholders, these groups here. If we can come to a consensus as a group as to, yes, that's the list that we would think that we would want, I think that's a step in the right direction. And then we would move to that next step that Tom was suggesting is, you know, maybe saying Beaumont, well, I guess Beaumont's kind of an outlier, but I think that we have the stakeholder groups generic enough to where now we can gauge interest within those groups. And that's sort of the next task for us, is to sort of, if we can agree at, okay, yes, we want a wide variety of participation. We think these groups are the ones that make sense. The next step is, can we get at least one person from either any of these groups to show interest? I agree with you, Andrew. Hopefully it's an overwhelming response and we have, you know, too much, and then we'll deal with that problem. But that might help us define if we cull this list, because, you know, maybe the school district says, yeah, we don't have time for this, just count us out. You know, that may be the case. It makes our job a little bit easier in that it's a kind of self-limiting this list that we've got by doing that. But maybe that's the first step for us as this group tonight, is to, I guess, make sure that we all agree, yes, wide variety of stakeholders, and is this the list that we want to go out and check interest on?
Sounds reasonable to me.
Do we need to vote on something like that? I don't know what the protocol is.
Yeah, so I don't know. Does anybody have an addition to the potential partners advisory team categories list? I can just type it in right now.
Small businesses on there.
Yeah. What about residents from other city boards? I mean, can we tap into them more specifically? Like Parks and Rec, for example, or our forester.
I also feel like our zoning board will be pretty important in certain things.
Yeah, I think we're starting to run a little bit of a slippery slope in terms of the fine level of detail in terms of, you know, what members of other cities or other cities commissions do we want, which other boards or commissions within the city of Royal Oak. I mean, ideally, everyone would have a voice in the shaping of this thing, but we, you know, literally every person, but we can't really do that. My suggestion would be, I'd like to have a discussion around this really, the work groups that get broken out of what we do should really be I guess the groups that are tasked with soliciting any input from, say, you know, Ferndale's Parks and Rec person or our own zoning board, to make those groups part of this sort of main advisory group or whatever we want to call it. I'm just a little bit concerned that we can really quickly get in the weeds, and at that point it's really hard to parse which departments within which cities are the most important to the work that we're trying to do or something along those.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, I'll just say, you know, when you talk about going to the zoning board, really you're going to the zoning administrator. I mean, the staff is where the expertise is going to be. And I think we want to make sure that we manage our demands of staff wisely and use Aaron and Julie as our filters there. So I'd be disinclined to assign staff to the committees, but more bring them in on an ad hoc basis when we need them.
And that kind of feels like once we get the topics set up in work groups for each of the topics, right?
Yeah, use them as subject matter experts.
Yeah, and I think, you know, again, in a specific work group, if you do think there's benefit or value in reaching out to a certain individual within another city department, you know, we have people and resources that can help facilitate that conversation, but that individual in the other city doesn't necessarily have to be a part of this group per se.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. So how about the next question for you all is, of these focus topics, are we missing anything? Are these the correct topic titles for our activities or our goals and actions? Because it's, you know, clear some of these things will span multiple topics, like the tree canopy, that could be considered green space. It could be considered, you know, part of health and wellness. It could be considered stormwater management or air quality. So, you know, we're not necessarily wed to the topics named here. This was just a first crack. So open for suggestions, alternatives.
And maybe just to help everyone's consideration, just so everybody knows, these categories and the way that we sort of organize this is born from the data that we looked at of the greenhouse gas inventory. So how that data was compiled is sort of one of the tools that we use to help organize these topic categories this way.
Mm-hmm.
When you hear a lot of people talk about sustainability and the triple bottom line being the planet, people, and profit, I'm just wondering, I can see how it fits into all these categories, but I don't know if we need to spell that out a little bit more, especially the people side of things. And like profit, you can get from conservation and this and that, but usually sustainability plans kind of have it broken down that way. But now I understand better why you guys broke it down in these focus areas.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Jennifer. I think, you know, if we look at these categories and as we look at these different, just call them measures or whatever you want to call them, you know, every one of these categories, I think should, you know, always be looking at how does the work that's being done in them or the topics that are being discussed, how do they address that triple bottom line you know, and some of them are going to do better in some areas than others. But I think you're right. That's one way to harmonize all of the efforts as to, you know, why you're doing what you're doing and what the net effect is, and at least being able to kind of scale them all together.
I guess I have a question about the quality of life groups. So, you know, it says equity, which I think is a somewhat nebulous term. You know, so in terms of like, if I was interested in participating on the basis of environmental justice, you know, if that was a topic area that really resonated with me as a resident, would that be the committee that would fall under? And I guess furthermore, another question I have, you know, in terms of some other areas of what would be maybe considered climate justice. So a lot of these technologies will cause disruption. And I think there's like economic transition effects, right, too, that have to be mitigated when you're planning. And so would the considerations for that also fall under quality of life? And if so, should that be spelled out a little more than it currently is? Because I kind of feel like those are some questions that, like, I don't know, like I feel like the city should look into job impacts and economic impacts of emerging renewables and how they'll displace, you know, current economic paradigms in the city, how they could affect residents. But I don't know if that would fall in there and if it should be called out. So just a question.
So I would say about the environmental justice and the equity, my intention is that each of these topics or measures, whatever we want to call them, would have those embedded because they're appropriate in all of these. Does that make sense? I mean, for energy efficiency, equity, right? Equitable process, equitable initiatives. About the second question, the climate justice and disruption, I don't know how that will play out. And so I'm not sure where it should be named, if it should be named. So
I was just going to say, I think to your question, Andrew, as we define a little bit more what each one of these topics is going to address, for each individual, hopefully they'll be able to take that and sort of figure out for themselves how they can plug themselves in. Because, you know, just the two statements that you used, environmental justice and climate justice, I think every individual may have a different answer as to what they feel actually would bring justice, or what ways they feel are the most effective to bring the result that they'd like. And that could occur in any one of those categories based on that individual. So I think if we can just provide a little more definition as to what those categories are meant to address, then we just kind of have to leave it up to everyone else to figure out, you know, what's most important to them and then how to plug themselves in.
anything else on this section? Okay, so going further, our thinking is that we would hold a couple open houses to ask for community feedback, community engagement. That, of course, you know, all of the details will be determined at some point. We have a question of how do we do this and how soon? And we answered that the advisory team, once we've laid out that group, would help move forward on the beginning timeline. Along with the survey, or along with the two open houses, we thought that we would send a survey out to continue to reach people who can't make it to an event for whatever reason. And then during those open houses, that's when we would ask for people to break up into work groups who would meet separately 3 or 4 times on a particular topic, you know, one of these measures, or, you know, whatever we end up calling these things. And that's where, like Shar said, we would ask staff to participate as subject matter experts in these work groups. And during the open houses, Amanda, we said that we would ask them, we would make the ask at the end of those open houses, right? If you have interest in transportation, would you consider joining the transportation workshop? You know, the obligation will be 3 or 4 meetings, and you guys would bring to the bigger group suggestions for actions and goals. And then, you know, the rest of this list is, you know, mostly questions and again, just brainstorming about what this process would look like. And then some more thoughts here. So I'm not sure that, you know, is this helpful to go through it one by one? Or do you want to read it when you have a chance and get back to me if you have any feedback?
Yeah, I think if you have something specific that you want the whole board to comment on, we should address that. And then if everyone can read this, and then if they have specific things they want to send Julie, they can do that on another time, because we are kind of running out of time and we have some more things we need to get to.
Okay, well, so we would ask the EAB, who else should be on this advisory team? That's a question to you all. We would ask the EAB, are these measures, you know, does this look like the basic setup for the topics that we will cover in our our sustainability action plan? And I think if we could get those, some feedback about those ahead of time, that would be great. And then if you can read it and let me know any other comments you have. Thank you.
And this work group is gonna meet again in February. Let me just get that date, February 3rd. So if you have any comments, get it to us by then, or if you would like to join the discussion, you can always join us too.
Okay.
All right, we'll move on to the next, and that is Aaron with the bins.
Yeah, I just wanted, am I mute? No, I'm not. For once, I'm not on mute. Yeah, that works. So yeah, I just wanted to add this on here really quick, just to mention that I know this has been talked about previously. We are going to take this before the end of this fiscal year to the City Commission. I will include your comments in the reports from the last time that we talked about this. I do understand that there's concern about driving down recycling on account of having that, but I see this however which way it goes out. There might be a couple step process here with the City Commission, depending on how it goes. But that would be an opportunity in any case when these things are going to get delivered, because I think that is already the will of the public. They want it. But we use that opportunity to really lock in a chance to say, just don't throw everything in here. Like, still recycle. We could make a desperate, maybe not desperate, but a push at that point, I think, would be appropriate. And we have a sort of captive audience. So I just wanted to say that is still pending. I know we talked about it, and that's really, and if you have any comments on that, I'd be happy to hear that, but we can loop those together with my next number 14 as well to talk about the upcoming recycling event. So we have one scheduled at the high school, like we did previously, household hazardous waste, all those same items on the 12th. And then the question was, and we don't have to.
The 12th of.
I'm sorry, that helps, right? The 12th of June.
Okay.
Saturday. And that's a Sakra-wide event. The question I had from Sakra is that they're also scheduling in right now Royal Oak. We could do city only exclusive event in the spring if we wanted as well, maybe to coincide with Earth Day. There's already one for a local city that's exclusive. I forget which city it is, scheduled early in April. But if that's something we want to do, let me know. We can get something on the books. With those events, if it's exclusive to Royal Oak, we can add on some other items. So we're not limited by what's at the typical drop-off events. We can do paper shredding even if we wanted. So we can kick around some dates. I wanted to throw that out there. And then just to mention that I think if we're going to do the trash cart thing, we really should do a push for just an increase in recycling, because I crunched through the numbers that are provided by Sakura on a regular basis about our usage. And from 2019 to 2010, every single month, Royal Oak consistently 20% of the trash stream. And they are really detailed numbers too. I mean, these are weights from the trucks. Almost constantly 20% of the waste stream is recyclable. So we have a good benchmark. We know what we need to get past. Good sign is that with the pandemic, nothing slowed down on recycling. But anyway, that's shared. And I have the full report of all of the tonnages that we generated from the different types of waste. If you guys are interested, I can share that with the group by email.
Yeah, could you?
Yeah.
That'd be great. Yeah, we
Yeah.
would like that.
All right, and that's all I've got.
So
Yeah.
for dates for the recycling, what were you thinking?
So they have, well, we already have that one scheduled in June, so we don't, if we want to do something in the spring, definitely got to be before that. Lathrop Village has an exclusive drop-off thing on the 24th. The most near one to that is a Troy one, and that's for all Sakura. So if we don't want to be too butted up against that, we would want to look at something to almost coincide with Lathrop Villages, if that's possible, which is end of April.
Okay.
But I just wanted to kind of get the temperature.
Yeah, I think we'd be interested in doing one of those as long as it's not like in snow.
Yeah.
Yeah. We almost always target like April or May for
Yeah.
the spring event. And of course, the weather always sucks. So it doesn't matter what date we pick.
Chris?
Well, yeah. So you were talking about how much of the waste stream Sakura has been documenting is recyclables.
Mhm.
So I just want to mention what I observed over the holidays in my neighborhood. There was tons and tons of cardboard. Mostly not inside people's carts. I mean, you could tell that they had stuffed their carts, but then there was so much left over that there were piles, literally piles of cardboard outside of people's carts. A lot. I mean, a tremendous amount. And I made me wonder what is happening to that, because my impression is that that stuff is going into the trash if it's not in the cart. And so, I mean, I don't know exactly what's happening. I can tell you that my neighbor across the street put out a whole bunch of boxes inside and outside of his cart. The trash truck was the first truck to come by, and all the boxes that were outside of the cart went into the trash. So I know that Sakura says if you want your cardboard recycled, it has to go in the cart. But I don't know what other people are observing in their neighborhood, but in my neighborhood, there's a lot of cardboard outside the cart. And if that's all going in the trash, well, no wonder the number is 20% of trash is recyclables. So that's my observation.
No, I didn't mean to say that 20% of trash, of refuse is recycled. I'm saying of the stream that we collect, that somebody puts out on average, they okay. So you understand, all right. You had a question in there though too, and I'm sorry. Did you have?
Well, no, I just wanted to pass along that as far as you know, Sakura's policy is that if cardboard is in the cart, it gets recycled. If it's not in the cart, it goes in the trash.
Their contract reads that if they're going to do recyclables on this mixed stream, everything needs to be in the cart. I've seen it, and I've heard it reported that it really depends on, I guess, how thoughtful the driver is, because they will get out and pick it. But they have a lot of routes, and it has to be automated with these machines. So if they're pushed up against a deadline, they're probably not going to get out and pick it. In some cases, if the refuse truck gets there before recycling, they might think to pick it up. So there are alternatives. People can drop those off if that's a concern. Really gets messy to try to instruct the drivers on an automated truck to get out and do it. So.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, I think that the issue is that the residents need to be told that
So
if you care about whether your cardboard is recycled or not, it needs to go in your cart.
And maybe when we drop off the big refuse bins, that could be part of our message.
Yeah.
So I've actually run this exact experiment before because I have noticed the same thing. That the trash truck arrived first. It took all the cardboard that wasn't in the bin.
Right.
Recycling truck came later. So I did a few different experiments. I took a small amount of cardboard, set it directly on top of the recycling bin, same result. Then I waited for the trash to get picked up. After they've already come, set cardboard on top of the recycling bin, but making sure to note that it was only enough that would fit into the small receptacle that's next to the device that picks up the cart. And I've noticed every time I've done that, I've been out there on several times. Aaron's correct. Some drivers, it's no problem because it's no extra effort for them. They have to bring that cart over to the truck anyways. The bin that they would throw the cardboard into is right next to it. They don't really have an issue. Definitely there's others that have come out and, you know, they are not as happy to take care of that as the other drivers, because to Aaron's point, it's really not in their contract. It's got to be in the bin. But to Christine's point, you know, we run a service for the city the first couple of weeks of every year where set your Christmas tree out and we'll come around and scoop it up and recycle it. To your point, Christine, around Christmas, we might want to see if there's a way from a recycling standpoint to set up something similar to where the first week of the new year, you're able to put out excess cardboard that will be picked up by the recycler and not the refuse truck or something along those lines. But that is I guess a quirk in the current system that we have that I did notice as well, and was very curious and spent several weeks experimenting.
Oh, Woody, I really like that idea. So some kind of brief amnesty period. And believe me, I'm not faulting the drivers because I know SACRA's policy is that it needs to be in the bin, and it's more work for them if they have to pick it up, you know, separately. But I love that idea because for 2 weeks after Christmas, there was so much cardboard at the curb. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, I think it's hard to tear up and get in your bin. I think a lot of, especially older folks, have a hard time with it. It's just physically difficult to tear those big boxes up into bin-sized chunks.
Yeah, and then sometimes people put their cardboard out and then they put trash in if they don't break down the box, if they're not breaking down boxes, they actually put their trash in some of the boxes. So, yeah, I just think residents need to know that if they think they're recycling cardboard when they're not putting it in their bin, it's not being recycled. It's being put in the trash for the most part.
But I had a question for Aaron, if I may. When we did these recycling events, we used to have the Friends of the Library there. They'd collect books. And of course, most of the books would wind up in the recycling, but they found some they could sell. And then we also collected scrap metal. Is there any way we could start doing that again?
Well, the books for right now at the library, the Friends has that donation bin. And then they also have a setup with GFL. They take them and recycle them. So the Friends go through, they sort through whatever they think they can resell. They do. And if anything's got stains, mildew, or whatever on it, that's just not a desirable book, they give that to GFL. So short story is they do recycle that now.
No, we used to have them at our recycling events, the Friends of the Library. And we'd tell people to bring their books with them. And then we'd also collect scrap metal.
Yes, yeah, we can do both of those things. Scrap metal for sure. Books, I know there was some issue with back when, but it doesn't have to be the provider that helps us run these events. We could just go right to GFL and ask them to provide us even just a bin to collect them in, nothing else.
Yeah, usually we get volunteers from the library to come and they'll sort there. They'll say, we'll take these, and then the rest can go to, yeah.
All right.
I just want to circle back to the bins again. What's the process? Like it's already a done deal. They'll go to the city commission and we're going to tell residents don't use to full capacity.
Well, no, because it really depends on how much they generate. And no, I didn't mean to imply that this thing is taking off. In fact, I've done the preliminary research on it. There's a couple different options that I had to choose. Ultimately, I think what the step will be is that it will go before the commission for the purpose of discussion, and then to deliberate over a couple different ways to kind of slice that apple. And then from there, they would give us as a resolution permission to work with SACRA we actually execute the contract for the purchase of these and then the delivery. But there's a bunch of questions that need to get answered first. So there'll be an intermediate step. I haven't really talked to commission about it. I think probably since this time last year, or maybe things just got wound up. But so no, it's not imminent. Just so you guys know, my recommendation, we talked about size changes. It becomes almost impossible to administer it effectively if we permit people to pick different sizes. And from my view, everybody gets the bin. If you wanted something smaller, you can buy a small garbage can that has wheels on it. And that's essentially what you'd be downgrading to if you got something smaller. So my recommendation would be that we all do one uniform size and everybody gets one. Now, what people put into it's still up to them and how full they make it. So does that answer it?
Yeah. Okay, I know we have just a short amount of time. It's already a long meeting. Just going on to the next thing is the Royal Oak 100 year celebration. I know that that's kind of happening right now, and we had talked in the past of doing something as a board. I don't know if anyone would like to maybe lead this and take this on and come up with some ideas and or if we just want to scrap it. Sure.
Yeah, in fact, it's funny. I just had a phone conversation with Judy Davids today, and she sketched out some of the ideas that the city has for its centennial. The big event will be at the new Centennial Commons Park next fall. Hoping that the park will be done, probably won't be just, the way these things go. But still, that would be an event with, kids' activities and people dressed in period costumes, handing stuff out and giving information. One of the things she speculated about was that we would sell or give away oak saplings. That might be, consistent with the advisory board's role. They're also going to do they may do something again, COVID allowing, at Normandy Oaks in the summer for second graders, in June, I guess, kind of a field trip for second graders where the Nature Society might host a walk and point out, why it's an oak savanna and what, the land was like here years ago. So that might resonate with this group. Those are the two things that I thought might be relevant here.
Okay, great. Is there any interest from anyone else? Should we just, anyone, is everyone start?
Yeah, I guess maybe just, so there, it sounds like from what Char just said, I just want to repeat, there's two events, one for sure that's going to be in the fall and possibly another one earlier, and do in some way or another we can participate in those events to bring some environmental focus. Yeah, I guess is there a more clear objective in terms of what you're asking someone to lead?
No, I mean, oh, go ahead,
let me just add that I'm sure the city would be happy if various groups did things at different times. That is, they're going to stuff a lot into those two events. And if there was something else that we were going to do at another time, A, we might get more awareness and from it. And B, it would help spread the joy out over the centennial year.
And maybe, I mean, we'll just keep it, how about we just keep it on the agenda? We'll think about it, talk about it. Maybe it will align with some of the sustainability stuff or the community garden. Maybe we could say, maybe we can tie it to something else that we're doing, and that way. Were you going to say something?
Well, I was going to say, so it could be something as simple as, you mentioned the sapling idea, something as simple as the EAB hands out 100 saplings 2 weeks before one of these events to let people know, and as part of the 100 year celebration, we're handing out these saplings. Make sure that you go attend the event coming up in a couple of weeks. And we do that at a farmer's market on a Saturday morning or something. So, okay. So it doesn't have to be too in-depth, I guess was my question.
Right. Yeah, that sounds great. Okay, and then the other thing is normally we have an Earth Day event and we had to cancel last year. COVID really hasn't changed, but I know that they still allow us to go to the farmer's market, or we could make it virtual. We could just promote things on our social media, or I don't know, tie it into anything else that we're doing. Maybe it's our recycling events. But just we could keep that on our agenda if we want to like mark that day in any way. I don't think that maybe our normal Earth Day celebration where we have a bunch of vendors together, that probably won't work again, I'm assuming. But maybe we can be creative and still have a COVID Earth Day. So if you have any thoughts on that as well, but I know.
Well, I was wondering if there was any way to just do the rain barrel sale, because that was, you know, people ordered online and then all they had to do was come and pick it up. So, you know, anyway, just a thought. We don't have to decide tonight, but if we even could just do that part, I think that would be valuable. But I agree. I'm in the vulnerable group, so I'm not going to be out in the midst of a bunch of people. So that's sort of my view of it.
If we could do the rain barrel sale with the recycling event. Did we try that one year?
You know, when the first time that we did that was at Royal Oak and Bloom. We sold, that's when Amanda got her picture in the paper. Yeah, we had rain barrels for sale, or I don't know if they were for sale or if you just had, anyway, we had rain barrels at Royal
The
Oak
first
and
one was
Bloom.
weird.
Yeah. So we did partner with that activity, but you know, that's always on Mother's Day. So that's another no for me. I'm not doing that on Mother's Day.
We got about 300 old recycling carts that we're storing that are just taking up space over at Waterworks. Maybe we can convert those into rain barrels and sell them.
You absolutely can. I did.
Yeah, why not?
Oh, look, I started. I was kind of kidding.
Well, you're eventually going to have to get rid of those somehow, right?
Yeah.
Or drill holes in them. They make good composters too.
Yeah.
Man, this is all right. This is getting legs. Uh-oh.
All right. Is there, oh, yes, there's one more discussion. Woody, do you want to bring that up? Moving on.
Are we to open topics now? Okay.
Yeah, we're in the open topic.
So I am excited to announce, so I'm excited for my family, but also for this group. I've just started the design process for a home that I'm going to be building. It's actually going to be a major renovation and addition and new construction to a home in Royal Oak. And the intent is to actually build a net zero home. And my goal is to also use this as a demonstration home, because I've got a lot of knowledge around, you know, the different strategies that go into it. That's sort of why I'm doing this project. But I think it's a rare opportunity that we've got, excuse me, an existing structure that we're going to be doing a major renovation to. So it gives people the ability to see what can be done to existing buildings. But then there's also going to be a component of new construction to be able to highlight and showcase strategies that get employed when you do have the ability to build from scratch. And so what I'd like to do actually is somehow partner with the EAB on this demonstration home. And the idea being, you know, again, we've got this resource to be able to educate people. I can certainly, you know, speak to many elements of the project specifically, but I know certainly there's other experts that can come in and talk to different levels of sustainability, but using that real world example at the various stages so people can get a look at things that they normally wouldn't be able to see in their homes. It's in Royal Oak, like I said. It's in the Vincetta Park area, so it's on Greenleaf at Greenleaf and Fairlawn. It's roughly about an 1,800 square foot house. Right now, we're going to be not quite doubling it, a little smaller than that. But again, with the goal being net zero. Obviously, that's the goal. If we don't get there, we'll at least be really damn close, and I can bolt it on at some point. But I wanted to mention it to this group because obviously we're excited about it, but I'm really excited about the opportunity to use it as a tool to educate people. And I guess I wanted to mention it to you guys because if you can, I guess, start thinking about ways in which we might be able to organize the teaching part of it, I'd certainly be open to that. We have plenty of time to think about this. I've got a fairly unique deal structured here in the sense that I have the house in contract, but the closing date may not be as far out until September. The current owners are still looking for a new home, and I don't have to be in there anytime soon, so we were able to work out really flexible terms. In the interim, I have full access to the home, all the original drawings. I'm getting all my design work and everything done. I would say at the earliest, work wouldn't start happening on the site until probably the fall. So there's a lot of time to kind of talk about how we might be able to use it as, you know, an opportunity to kind of show people different strategies and things. And this sort of came up as part of our sustainability plan discussions as well. Pretty large component of that was as a city, we can only control a certain percentage of that. The residents and resident behavior is really what's going to be what moves the needle. And so to be able to provide a resource that we can show people, hey, these are the types of things that you'll need to be considering in order for us as a community to meet our sustainability goals. So I think that's most of what I wanted to say.
Yeah, well, congratulations.
Yeah.
And thank you for thinking of us. We definitely want to help you in that and educate the city. It's going to be a great demonstration. Chris?
I think that's great, Woody. I think you should do an HGTV style format where you're videoing all of your before, during, and after. And that way, you know, we could put that online or, you know, whatever, and you could show people how it's done, how they could take on these projects. So anyway.
I think that's a great idea. I always joke with my wife about getting my SAG card. But my drawback is I also always scoff at her reality TV shows. So while I think it's a great idea, someone's going to have to coach me on the best way to produce that.
Real homes of Royal Oak.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really exciting, Woody. I'm super glad to hear that. I would just say, you know, it sounds like it's going to be a while, so hopefully the pandemic will be over, fingers crossed, when touring capabilities are possible. But I know home tours have always been something that I've done for many, many years, and they're really popular with people that want to learn more about how to live sustainably. And there aren't a lot, and I don't know if there's any net zero stuff really in Royal Oak residentially.
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, if there is, great. I'd love to be able to highlight that other home as well, and so more people know about it.
Yeah, a lot of our people have had to travel to Ann Arbor, so having something local, I think it would be phenomenal. So I'm just super excited to hear it.
Yeah, so I wanted to kind of get that out there because I'm certainly by no means an expert. You know, the more people that know that a project like that's happening, hopefully, you know, good ideas will trickle their way back to me as well, so that I can incorporate them. So.
Anyone else with any updates or discussion?
I have one. Yeah, I noticed that the spring tree sale is going on.
Oh yeah.
Right now, and I thought about it because when Kevin was still on the board here, he mentioned for the 100th anniversary we should consider getting 100 trees that DPS could plant. And then I thought of the tree sale. So two things: tree sales going on. Maybe Aaron can give some details about that. But I wonder, Aaron, do you have funding to buy 100 trees?
There's funding wherever there's will. There's money somehow. No, I don't have a budget for it this year. To give you some idea what they cost, they're almost at cost of $322, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't have that right now. I mean, that could be something that we would do. The DPS does not have the labor to plant 100 trees in the normal course of things, so that would have to be paid out as well.
Could you dig holes? Could you dig the holes and we get 100 volunteers to?
There's more to it than that, though.
Oh.
I mean, we really want it planted by somebody that knows from a nursery. But that's not an impossible idea, not bad. And then the other problem with that is just knowing where to plant them. It seems easy, like, oh, people want trees everywhere. But if you private property, public property, you know what I mean? It just turns into, it's not as easy as it sounds, but
yeah, I mean, we don't have to buy 100, we could buy one. I believe that the board has a tree in Star JC Park somewhere that we decided to buy one year. And it was, planted by DPS.
no, the city could, the option that would be easier would be, not to go longer here, but would to subsidize the cost of it on a given year, reduce the cost of the tree for those that want it, just do a matching thing or something that for a short period of time, it becomes significantly cheaper to get a tree. And then we'll do that, that's a possibility.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Aaron, do you know how many people usually buy trees every season that they're
Yeah, you know what? And I do have it because I'm compiling a report. I don't have it in front of me right now for our annual report. So I don't want to venture to guess, but I can get you the information. It's hundreds.
Oh, okay. Because I was just wondering if we say like the first 100 people will match, and that could be part of the 100-day celebration. That'd be kind
Yeah.
of cool.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We still do something like that for this spring?
Yes, that's not impossible. No.
So a couple of years ago, I have to refresh my memory here. I think it was the Greening of Detroit or one of the sort of regional, tree planting organizations. They had a local volunteer here in Royal Oak that spearheaded something like that. And they did a training session on how to plant a tree, and people, how did that work? The, Parks and Rec dug the holes, and then people got their tree and they were told how to, deep to put it in the dirt and so on and so forth. And then the Parks Department watered them on a regular schedule. So let me reach out, look back, see if I can dig through my old emails or my old addresses and see what I can recollect on that subject. Maybe there's a possibility there.
My friend organized one for, it's over off of Catalpa, Manly, no, I can't. Right off of the
Manager Park.
Yeah.
That's the event.
Okay, yeah. So Andrea Makar, she organized it.
Yes.
They had Greening of Detroit, but they also had what was that other group that we worked with?
Global Relief.
Relief, yeah.
Yeah.
Relief was there. And she had to raise half the funds, and then Relief did the other, and then that's how they got the trees.
So Amanda, I spoke with her, but I don't know her. Clearly you do. You might touch base with her and see if there's a way to kind of partner together here in the 100th year and do 100 trees.
Yeah,
cool.
That's great. Yeah. Thanks for reminding me.
And that would add to our sustainability plan actions, because the increasing tree canopy is part of the deal.
Okay, I'll look into it. Is there anything else? Any other discussion for tonight? We've made it all the way to 9 o'clock. Always that first meeting is long.
Last comment I'd like to make is I like Char's shirt. That's a really funny shirt. I don't knit, but nice hat.
What does it say?
It says, "Look, I made a hat."
So it's a quote from the Broadway musical Sunday in the Park with George. And it's part of a song about art and artists and their obsessions, and how obsessed they can become over something as simple as painting a hat. But it's really more about all of artists and their creative process.
That was a play on, look, I made the show. Okay, anyway. Well, I read the joke, I guess, that it's a funny looking hat that you're wearing wrong.
I wanted to bring up really quickly for folks. So last year I worked with Commissioner Kristen Nelson on a Oakland County native plant giveaway, along with a small group of folks. I shouldn't say we, the county distributed, I think it was between 100 and 200 native plant kits that we helped design. And I just wanted to, we've been invited, well, I was reached out to because I had inquired about it. kind of been invited back to plan a much bigger sort of sell-off in the, well, it's not, they're free, so I guess it's not really even a sell-off, but they're giving out free plant kits in March timeframe or May timeframe, somewhere in there. And it's gonna be much bigger than the initial program. The last one was kind of a pilot program for them, just to see how it went, and it went really well. So I think they want to include a lot more people. They're looking at putting together a advisory task force. So I guess my question just was, if anyone is interested in being a part of that, helping to sort of advise the county on native plant stuff, would love to. They've asked me to identify a list of people that might be interested in serving on sort of this ad hoc group they're putting together. Let me know, or if you know anyone in the community, that would be good. I'd trust anyone's judgment on here, so I'll be glad to have those recommendations.
So Andrew, I'll email you offline with a recommendation.
Great, thank you.
All right. Well, I think that has come to the end of our meeting.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, Woody?
Yeah, I just wanted to let you, so the gentleman that joined us from the public had a question. I was wondering if, since before we conclude here, if it was okay to let him ask it.
Yes, yeah, I text, but I don't know if he is, can he?
Yeah, he can hear you.
Okay, is he on mute?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. Hey, this was the first time I attended the meeting, and I had accidentally landed on this link this morning, and I decided to join in. It was very informative. I'm very glad that folks in my neighborhood are doing this kind of effort. Most of what you talked about, I have been living in downtown Royal Oak for 3 years, and I have not even known any of what you guys are doing. So I'm really glad that I joined today. I have one question relating to wind energy. The topic got brought up for just a little bit at the beginning of meeting. So typically for, let's say, a resident wanting to do some kind of a wind turbine or some kind of wind extraction, does the city have any kind of environmental, particularly wind speed direction data for Royal Oak area? Or if not, would that be something of interest to the city? Because if sustainability and energy efficiencies are the goals, solar and wind seem to be attractive options. But for anybody to do anything wind, particularly, they need to get a good amount of data on that. So,
no, I guess as far as I know, we don't have that information. At least not my department. And I don't know about the feasibility of that. I don't know if anybody else wants to.
Yeah, I mean, I can jump in and just say that, in terms of cities, or really utilities, because I follow the utilities really closely, and a lot of the wind energy is generated in the state where the wind potential is the highest. So they actually have maps that sort of put an overlay that I've seen that talk about that. And unfortunately, Southeast Michigan, in my understanding, is not. It's actually one of the worst areas for wind in the region. So a lot of the utilities build. The wind energy that's coming into our cities right now is built elsewhere. It's built in like the Thumb or north of Lansing, and then it's like piped by large transmission lines in. There is smaller scale wind that I think might be applicable for certain projects, and maybe that information would be helpful for that. But I think like in terms of like large scale renewable goals, it just seems like the economics generally make more sense to site it elsewhere. But that's what I know about it.
Okay, I was leaning more towards a small scale, just a household 2-3 kilowatt kind of system. But thank you, though.
So the restrictions you would find would be in the zoning ordinance. I don't know. I don't think we have anything about wind facilities per se, but it'll have to do with the height of the building and the degree to which it projects over the top of the building, and its placement in terms of lot lines, its proximity to other lot lines. So I think that's where you would look to see what what's possible or what restrictions exist.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. This
Yeah, thank you for coming to our long
You
meeting.
never get guests. It was nice.
Can I ask one more question? You guys seem to be very excited to have general public in there. Am I the only one?
Not the only one ever. It's not that common, all right?
The only one tonight.
Yeah.
I'll take pride in that.
Yeah, just be careful because you may wind up recruited to a committee if you don't show up again.
That happens, Paul, Andrew, Nick, Woody, Julie.
Yeah, I was a guest a year ago.
Exactly. All right. Well, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
How about a second?
Second.
I will call the roll. Ms. Acevedo,
Yes.
Ms. Commissioner Douglas,
Yes.
Mr. Gontina,
Yes.
Ms. Hartwig,
Yes.
Ms. Herzog,
Yes.
Ms. Lemmy,
Yes.
Mr. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Marcelletti. Oh, he stepped aside earlier. He texted. All right. Ms. McMahon.
She said yes.
Oh, couldn't see her. All right. Mr. Regan.
Yes.
Ms. Sarpalis. Mr. Sarpalis.
Yes.
And Mr. Bile.
Yes.
All right. Have a wonderful evening, and I'll see you
Good night,
guys
guys.
next month. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, everybody. Have a
Bye.
good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.